Welcome back to ChatTPT, now in Season 2. Let's dive into the music industry's vibrant world together with insider tips and uplifting conversations. Tune in for the tools and motivation you need to succeed. And we are live.
And we're starting off with a fashion show. So,
let's see it.
This is my shirt. This is my ChatTPT shirt. Because I'm a potato.
That is amazing.
And on the back, it has our logo. I can't even tell if you can
Amazing. Wait,
Yeah.
Is this like ChatTPT swag that we can order now?
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, this is good to know.
So, Kayla, did you tell him the genesis of this?
No.
What is it?
It was one of our Kayla, I don't know the genesis to my own merch.
I don't even know what that word means.
In the beginning, there was trumpet, and it was good.
I happen to watch a very religious podcast, so I know what Genesis means. But
There it is, yeah. You listen to one of those Catholic guys talk all the time.
At the Catholic school. But a few episodes in to our discussion, we were talking about balancing mental health with playing the instrument. Obviously, you can go too far some way. If you practice 5 hours a day and you're beating up your face, you're also beating up your mind, and so on and so forth. And Kayla at one point mentioned, and this is maybe, I think it's our most viewed clip still right now, that she has days where she calls potato days, where she just allows herself to just sit and just not do anything. And so she says in the she says on the podcast clip, she's like, I am merely a potato and I don't have to do anything. And it's impressive.
That's
just
amazing.
How, first of all, I think that's a great quote. But then second of all, it just became an iconic part of the podcast. So now we have merch around it.
Absolutely.
I don't even have a potato card. Where's my Canva?
We're not a real podcast then. We've got to fix that.
Now, there's still work to be done, obviously. A potato card would be necessary.
It would be necessary, yes.
Okay,
yes.
on it.
Okay, so while Kayla's doing that, welcome back to ChatTPT. We're so glad that you guys are here. Obviously, we have a really great guest with us. He is my former teacher, and I've been really spoiled with a lot of former teachers. I look up to them a lot because of what they've done in the business. This is Joey Tartell from Indiana University, and Joey, occasionally we have ChatGPT as a co-host on ChatTPT. And it's been a while since we've done this, and it's improved quite a bit. So I'm going to let ChatGPT give your bio, which is actually way more accurate than it used to be.
Holy crap. I was not prepared for this in any way.
It's okay.
I can't wait for this.
It's okay. I think you'll be surprised, maybe even almost disappointed, because it's pretty accurate.
Is it getting better?
It's getting a lot better. All right, so here we go. Joey Tartell is an accomplished trumpet player and associate professor of trumpet at Indiana University's Jacobs School of Music, where he has been teaching since 2003. He is not only a dedicated educator, but also an active performer. Tartell is a member of the trumpet ensemble Tromba-Mundi and frequently plays lead trumpet, as well as in recording studios in Indianapolis. Throughout his career, Tartell has performed as a lead trumpeter in featured solos with several symphony orchestras, including the Cincinnati, St. Louis, Houston, Detroit, Indianapolis, and Baltimore symphony orchestras. His touring and recording credits include working with notable ensembles and artists such as Maynard Ferguson's band, the Woody Herman Orchestra, the Smithsonian Jazz Masterworks Orchestra, and the United States Army's Jazz Ambassadors. He has also backed up artists like Doc Severinsen, Aretha Franklin, and Arturo Sandoval. Tartell holds a bachelor's degree in trumpet performance from the Eastman School of Music and master's degree in jazz studies from the University of Miami. His experience and expertise make him a prominent figure in the trumpet community. What do you think? How about that?
It's not bad. I am a full professor now, not an associate professor.
Yep. Also, important detail that I think makes it all null and void. It didn't say anything about Butcher of Indiana. So yeah. I don't think we can call this a real...
No, it's the best nickname I've ever been given, and that obviously needs to be included anywhere. And of course, a featured editor of a few books with my own name misspelled on the cover of one of them, thanks to my good friend Scott Belk. But that is considerably better than the first time I got on ChatGPT.
Way better, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's pretty
that
pretty
technology is definitely getting better. That's funny.
Yeah. So, I thought, and I mentioned this a little bit to you before we started this episode, when I asked you if you were willing to come in and join with us. But I think today is a wonderful day for us to take a direct approach to talking about trumpet pedagogy, and also a little bit on the philosophical side of things, because there's a lot of trumpet voodoo in the world. There's a lot of like, try this hack and it'll fix all of your problems, and try this gadget and it'll fix all of your problems. And it's not the player, it's the horn, and all this really great stuff. And we won't have enough time to get through all of the really great stuff about teaching. But at the very least, I would like to have our audience understand a little bit about your pedagogy. From a very selfish reason, the way that I teach, I've learned a lot from you, and I give to my students, and it works effectively, right? And it works better than a lot of things that I've taught, which is, again, is part of what, we've never had this discussion, which is really cool. I'll get to talk to you about how, what I've learned from you has helped some of my students, which is great. Before we go any further, I think there's a lot of people in the world that like to discredit, wherever they can without doing any research at all. So I'm going to do the research for them. You guys are welcome. So if there are any haters watching this podcast, keep listening, and keep watching. Joey Tartell is a trumpet professor at Indiana University. There is a certain level of students that show up at IU. But Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, you also have quite a bit of experience working with beginning trumpet players in your career, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not. Anybody looking for a college teaching job now knows that, boy, without even a doctorate or mostly completed one, it's even hard to get in the door. And that was me 30 years ago. So when I started looking for college trumpet jobs with a master's degree, I was not getting a lot of interviews. So what I wanted to teach. So I started teaching. I started teaching anywhere I could. I taught middle school kids, high school kids. I did this in Kalamazoo in a music store. I did this in Chicago a bit. And then I moved to Lafayette and really set up shop there for a few years. I lived there for several years before getting lucky enough to get a full-time teaching job. So yes, I've taught from day one until, I have doctoral students now and adult students.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I think the way that you teach works with all students of all experience levels. And I think to go through that process. Oh, Kayla, I just got your text, Kayla, of the all too important ChatTPT cards. Hold on. Yeah, I've got to show this. I've got to show this before I go on. These are wonderful. These are wonderful.
How did you make a potato card that quickly? That's amazing.
Kayla's pretty impressive for a lot of reasons. We've got We've got the cancel card. We've got the consent card, which is maybe my favorite. We've got king, queen. I'm gonna show them all. This is for our YouTube audience. King. We've got queen. We've got reverse. So this is the real deal. It's basically we can play Uno with these cards. The +2 card, tell me more about whatever you're talking about, so on and so forth. The Yoga Octopus, which was inspired by our good friend Dr. Brianne Borden, and then the Take a Break card. Amazing. This is great.
Love it.
Awesome stuff. So
I think I'm going to print these out and use them in my lessons now.
Please, no, print them out, and it needs to be a part of our merch. We need a full deck of Uno cards with these special cards. It needs to happen. It needs to happen.
But what happens when someone plays the Yoga Octopus? Do you have to do a yoga pose?
It's our game or rules, so we can figure out what that means.
How to get 6 extra arms.
Yeah. And if you don't, you have to draw 10 cards.
Maybe it's draw 8 cards because it's an octopus.
See, now you're getting somewhere.
I like where this is going. Yeah. All right, it was a digression, but a worthy digression. All right, back to trumpet pedagogy. Joey, I would love to hear your story specifically about in Lafayette. I think you might know what I'm referring to. There was a summer program where you had the opportunity to work with some students. Can you tell me about it?
Absolutely. I had been teaching, a wide variety of students, and I kind of had some ideas about how starting kids would work. And I moved to Lafayette, and they start their students who are going to be joining beginning band in June. So they're like, okay, we're going to start beginning band. So they had 2 different middle schools. So they asked me, would you come do this? Here's what you get to do. You show up at one middle school, and you get 45 minutes with all of the trumpets. The first day, they are getting their instruments from the music store. You get day one, and you get 45 minutes alone with them, and then they're going to go into band, and then you go over to the other middle school, and you get the other students there. So they do brass before or brass after. So they alternate, and then in the middle, they have the whole plan. So I thought, this is the perfect place to test my theories. Because I thought to myself, what I think is that, one, the beginning band books, and I understand why, seriously underrate what most students can do because they have to keep all of the students involved. So I thought, if I don't have to do this, if I just have trumpet, how much can I get accomplished if I just have trumpet players? Well, here was my chance to try. So I had these students every day for 6 weeks for 45 minutes. So the first day, it was like, okay, here's, latches pointing down. So when you open the case, the horn doesn't fall out. Here's how to put the mouthpiece in. Here's how to hold the instrument. Here's how to make sounds. I mean, that beginner, first day they're holding the instrument. So I thought, what do we need to do? And Marcus, as you know, I like to oversimplify everything. So as a teacher, I want to make things as simple as possible. I want to make trumpet as easy as possible.
Way.
So anybody can get
Never
to
heard of it.
Never heard of it before. So I thought, how does this work for beginners? I don't want to make this hard. I want to make this easy. So I said, here's what we're going to do. So we're going to learn a scale every week. We're going to learn a little lip slur every week. We're going to learn a little finger pattern every week. And then we always have to learn some music. So I asked them what they wanted to learn. And they wanted to learn some little TV themes, like TV cartoon themes. This is a long time ago. Now it's harder to find cartoons everybody knows. So I said, okay. So I went home and wrote it all out. So I wrote out, and I said, and I wrote down names of the notes above and the fingerings below. And I wrote this all out and copied it all out and handed it all to them and said, here's what we're going to do. And reviewed what we did before. Here's how to hold the horn. Here's how to open it. Here's how to make a sound. Here are our notes. Copy me, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it's going really well. Now, when I asked, what am I supposed to do with these? The band director said, well, teach them. You got 6 weeks, and at the end of the 6th week, we do a concert. And at the concert, it's a big, huge, mass beginning band, and we'll bring you out. Hey, this is who taught the trumpets, because then if the kids want to take lessons, the parents will see you. It's a win-win situation. I said, got it. Never really thought much more about that. So the first week, it goes really, really well. So the next week, I'm like, all right, new scale, new lip slur pattern, new finger pattern, and a new melody. So it was like a little 8-bar melody. So I thought, we'll string this together. So the next week, let's do this. Let's do this. Everybody review, checking out, making sure everybody's set up right. Nobody's doing anything crazy, And the kids are like, yeah, this is awesome. So we do this for 6 weeks. So at that point, they've got 6 major scales. They've got like some good finger stuff going on. They're learning chromatic stuff because I don't know why we don't introduce sharps and flats to kids. If you look at most beginning band books, the ones that get them all the way through 6th grade may get them to 2 or 3 key signatures, which doesn't make any sense to me because then as soon as they get to, for lack of a better term, real music, they get confused. Give it to them right away. They'll be fine. So we get to the concert. And then here's what happened. So they go in score order. They play one big thing and say, now we're going to bring out our flute teacher. This is the person who's been working with all the flutes. They're going to perform number 17 from the beginning band book. And I thought, that's weird. Why would you do something from the book? I mean, you got all this time. So they come out and they do that. And now we're going to bring out the clarinet teacher. And this is who they've been working with. And now they're going to do number 11 from the book. And I thought, oh no, what have I done? Every other teacher there did one of these 8-bar melodies out of a beginning band book. So when they got to me, and now we like to bring out, this is Joey Tartell. He's been working with the trumpets. They're going to be doing a cartoon TV theme medley. It's 48 measures long because I did 8 bars every week. So I walk out, all the trumpets stand up, and I just stand out in front and conduct. And please don't tell Bill that I would wag. But I stood there, and all of them could play it. I put it in keys that they could play in, and so everybody could do it. But I'm suddenly feeling like I have done something wrong because everyone else is doing something else. I'm feeling like there's a target on my back. Like this is not okay. I got myself in trouble here. So after the concert, I'm trying to basically sneak out of the gym there where we are, and the band directors give me the, we need to talk to you. I'm like, oh, here it comes. So I walk into the office, and they say, how did you do that? And I said, whoa, hey, I want to be clear. When you have everybody on every instrument and no one knows everything, you have to make sure that you can keep everybody on the same page. I do not have that. I have trumpet, and I can get everybody on trumpet on the same page and going, and it's way easier to get them going faster and quicker. And they're saying, right, but these kids are going to be starting beginning band. I said, these kids can already play the entire beginning band book, because then we would use that for reading. Like they're already done with it. And I said, they're functionally 7th graders. He's like, I don't know what we're going to do with that. And then next year, well, then I did it again, but I did it on purpose. So, but the idea, after seeing that, I was like, right, I know kids can do this. Kids can, given the opportunity, they can achieve. So it gets really frustrating to watch how slowly sometimes I watch. There are teachers that I don't know that sometimes I want to go beat up. I was just teaching at a camp last week. There's a young 8th grader. He's about to be a freshman in high school. And he came in and he is set up with the mouthpiece underneath his top lip and pinching his top lip up. I mean, I couldn't believe he could make a sound. Ooh. So I'm watching him on his audition, and he has every problem that goes with it. No clear sound, no flexibility, like nothing at all, working very well. So I brought him in. I said, hey, let's get together. Let's spend some time. Hey, listen, can we just try this? It's a very simple setting up exercises, back and forth. Look at me do this. It's going to feel weird, but let's try it. 15 minutes, he's like, oh, well, God, that works a lot better. How come my teacher at home hasn't told me this? This kid has been taking lessons for over a year. Yeah, and that's what makes me mad, because I don't think it's that hard to take that time. But I think, what we should always be doing, speaking of trumpet pedagogy, is finding out where that student is and then helping them move forward. That's the whole job, to oversimplify. Where's the student? Let's start there and keep going. So when I'm teaching in a very good music schools, and most of the students I get are at least pretty good coming in. And then graduate students, usually really, really good coming in. So we start in a different place, but the idea is exactly the same, whether it's the day you get the instrument for the first time or starting your doctorate. I don't think Clark would mind me telling a little story about him, would he? You remember Clark Hunt, right? He came in here to start his doctorate in his mid-30s. Clark is an amazing trumpet player, great lead trumpet player, a powerhouse. And he came in like, yeah, I think I should probably play in one of those orchestras. I'll take the orchestra audition. And I said, the orchestra audition here is quite competitive. Yeah. And does not make an orchestra his first semester. He's like, what's up with that? These undergrads sound amazing. There was no vibe from him. He listened to the undergrads and went, wow, they're really good. I'm like, yeah. We have some very, very strong players. I said, listen, your lead playing seems in good shape. Let's take a look. Pull your C trumpet out. There's a way these excerpts go. There's a way that we approach these things. There's a way to go at this. And then the next semester, he placed principal in one of the orchestras. So he walks into his next lesson, sat down and said, okay, just tell me what to do. But it was the idea of, like where was he when he walked in the door? And then how do we keep that moving forward? And now he's, teaching college and doing great. But, it's the same for everybody. But I think oftentimes there's especially with trumpet teachers who've been doing this a long time, a sort of idea of this is what we do in 6th grade, this is what we do in 7th grade, this is what an 8th grader sounds like, this is what a 9th grader sounds like. And I just don't think that's the way it should be. It should be where can this student be? And then let's go. And if they can go, further than what you're supposed to do as an 8th grader, okay, fine. Or if they are behind, then, let's get them going. That I don't believe in those sort of things. It's just going to be where that kid is and where we're going. But never more stark a contrast than that couple of summers in Lafayette. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Kayla, had you heard that story in Lafayette?
No, I think that's awesome. And I mean, that's very similar to I tell my students that I want them to play. I want it to be as easy as possible for them. And so we use that to start discussing efficiency. And it's like, okay, you're trying to run a marathon with straight legs. That's not going to be very easy. You'll do it, but, not going to work out very well. So you want to figure out the way to make it as easy as possible. So yeah, that really resonates with me. It's like, you want to make it as simple as you can. I find that I teach a lot of adults, like comeback players as well. And it is so much harder to get them started and get them moving than with my younger kids. The younger kids, I'm like, okay, make a fart sound. And they're like, and my older students are like, but what do I have to do with my lips and with my tongue and with what am I doing? And I'm like, just do it. Just, we overthink and overcomplicate things so much. So I guess that would be
absolutely. As a group, we are crazy people.
My question for Joey would be, how do you go about working with, the grown-ups to complicate things less and to just sort of like play.
Here's a conversation similar to what you just said, is a conversation I have at least a couple of times every year. I tell them, teaching college students is so much harder than teaching beginners, because when you teach beginners, you say, just do this. And they're like, oh, okay. And they just do that. By the time you're an adult college student or, comeback player, you have, for lack of a better term, figured out what works, which sometimes could be a lot of extra work. So a lot of times I go back to, can we just do this? It's really very, very simple. Trumpet playing is not complicated. It doesn't mean that it's easy. I mean, I want to make it as easy as possible, but it's a lot of coordination. But essentially, we're blowing air through a tube. I mean, we don't want to make that too complicated, right? But we do. We make every single aspect of that complicated. So when I get college students, well, my lips and my hand and my tongue and my teeth and my aperture and my left hand and my shoulders and, my knees, and like, wow, what if you just took a breath and blew through? What happens? What if you get rid of all of that stuff and just do this? I have that conversation all of the time, because by the time you've gotten to, especially graduate students here, they're pretty good. And then they're wondering why they're hitting a ceiling. And usually they're hitting a ceiling because they're getting in their own way at that point, instead of just letting themselves get better. That happens so often.
Yeah, absolutely. What I love about this train of conversation, there's two things. One is that playing the trumpet is simple, which I think not everyone even starts there, right? It's like, well, you've got to, pinch this and compress that. And, you've got to do, send your prayers up to the heavens. And then you've got to go run 42.5 miles on one leg. And then you have to, buzz into your mouthpiece, and then you'll be able to make a sound. And like, none of that is true. It's like, bring your instrument up. So I had a short on YouTube, which I then repurposed for TikTok and Instagram and so on and so forth. That was essentially a 15-second trumpet lesson. And in those 15 seconds, 12 of those seconds was how to hold the instrument. And then the last 3 seconds, it was like, all right, say M, bring it to you, and boom. And I had comments, dozens of comments from beginners that are like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. This is the most helpful thing in the world. I know how to make a sound. I've been trying for 3 days, and then I found this video because I gave up and I searched on Google and I found it, and it's been so helpful. And it just literally all I said was bring the instrument up and blow into it. Oh, bring the instrument up and blow into it. Mm-hmm. But probably in most cases, someone somewhere, and this is a lot of my students here. And I mean, this is different ideas in pedagogy, different experiences, and so on and so forth. But students, obviously, not all of them have the same teaching in pedagogy. A lot of students that run into me, especially beginners, they'll talk about how they have a lot of trouble learning how to buzz. I was like, well, listen, you don't even need to know. Just blow air through the instrument. Let your lips buzz themselves. Don't even worry about this. We're going to focus on the sound through the trumpet, not the buzzing that happens on the mouthpiece. And when they stop thinking about the contact point and they start thinking about the result, suddenly everything starts fixing itself. And it's because from day one, someone somewhere had taught them how to, immediately overcomplicate the process behind making that happen. The other thing that I really like about this conversation is and this is what you mentioned this a little bit in the beginning of your account of the story, but students, when given the will to learn, they can do way more than we think that they're capable of most of the time.
Almost always.
Somebody listens. Yes. And when someone listens to, for example, a professional trumpet player, we can use Natalie Dungy as an example. Kayla, you went to college with her, a great trumpet player, right?
I love Natalie.
She grew up with her dad playing the Goethe concert etude, and then she was like, well, I want to learn how to play the trumpet. I like that. That's something. And she was about 4 years old, 5 years old, or something like that. Young enough for her parents to be like, you're too young. And then when she was 9 years old, played the Artunian at the National Trumpet Competition and got first place in the junior division. I started playing the trumpet when I was 11, but she won a national competition when she was 9, right? But she had the opportunity to listen to a professional player who does it really well and essentially just copy what they do before anyone had the chance to go in and say, listen, trumpet's really hard work. and it's going to take you 10,000 hours to get any good at it. And before you do, before you even touch the instrument, you just need to know are you ready for this huge commitment? It's like, no, the trumpet's fun. I love the trumpet. Let's play some stuff. Cool. This is fun. And everyone around is like, you sound amazing. It's like, oh, cool. I mean, it's just fun to me. Right. And so a lot of students, I have found success. I could maybe say, I think I can say 100% of my students. I have found success with them immediately from the get-go by just simplifying the process of playing the trumpet. I can't imagine how much harder it would be if I tried to delve in and do the surgery that sometimes we try to do as trumpet players when we overcomplicate things.
Yeah, and it happens way too often. I mean, back to the beginners, there are teachers out there that say, all right, for the first month, we're not even going to play the trumpet. We're just going to play the mouthpiece. And all I can think is, no one got in this to play the mouthpiece. And especially when you're beginners, get them on the horn and get them playing something. This is going to be more fun. You're going to get a better result. And then when you have, I think goals are a good idea, but the idea of goals that are out of your control aren't. The idea of, I want to make district band, sure, except you're not judging district band. And if you play well enough, the goal should be, I want to play well. I want to play. I mean, I had a very conscious goal as an undergrad. I had a good conversation with this violinist. We were really good friends. And she said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be great. We were juniors in college at the time. And she said, you don't think you're great already? Because, we're trumpet players and, we're at Eastman where everybody's snooty. And I said, oh, no. I think I know where great is. That's where I want to be. And I think if I can be great, I think that other things will take care of themselves. And I kind of stand by that. The idea of, like if I want to make district or I want to make all state or I want to get into this core, those can be results of doing really, really well. But then those sort of things, if you're really taking care of business, those sorts of things take care of themselves. Because the idea of, let's say, I just want to make All-State. So let's say you make All-State when you're a sophomore in high school. Are you done? And then you're like, oh, I don't have to practice anymore. I'm good. Or even, I've been very fortunate and very lucky in my career. Like I get to go play lead with Maynard Ferguson. Okay, well, I did that for almost 2 years and then I leave. Well, now what? I guess I'm done now. I'm good. That's what I wanted to do. So I can retire at 27. That seems ludicrous. Like there's always more, this is the great part about being trumpet players, being musicians, is that there's one, and I say this all the time, there's always more music you don't know than you do. And two, there's always the potential for more and more growth in whatever way you want to look at that. So there's always ways to get better. There is no being done. There was a video game in the 1980s, and I know I'm going way back here. This game was called Root Beer Tapper. And what you did is on one hand, you would fill up the root beer, and on the other hand, you would serve patrons, and there were 4 bars. And sometimes they would drink it and leave. Sometimes they would throw their glass back for a refill, and you had to keep everybody with their root beer fresh. So I got very, 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 very good at this game because I like putting quarters into video games in the 80s. So I was with a girl I was dating at the time. She was going to go shopping with her best friend, and I was going to see, this was the day. This is what we did in the 80s. I was going to find out if this game had a million digit on it. So, because sometimes when they got to, it would flip over to 0 or we didn't know. And I'm like, I think I've got the time. I'm going in. So I went to the mall early because it was the 80s and you go to the mall. That's where you go. I put my quarter in and I'm going. She came back like an hour later. How you doing? Good. I'm good. How you doing? Oh yeah, we're looking here and here. We'll come back. Okay, boom, 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 boom. So it's like 3.5 hours in and it flips over. I did not have a million digit and I had like 32 extra guys sitting there. And she's like, well, you want to grab lunch? And I looked at that point and thought to myself, I'm done with this game. I think I've done everything that I can do with this game. There's nothing left here for me. So there's a kid there. I said, you want this? Because back then, the other part is if you lose, then you get to put, once you end, you get to put your initials up in the top score. That's kind of a thing. And he's like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, I'm out. I just left. It's the last time I played the game. I was done with that game. You cannot be done with trumpet. You cannot be done with music. That's what makes it so great, because now as I get older, the idea that former students of mine are out here doing amazing things, Marcus, you being one of them, makes me, of course,
Thank you.
even older, but realizing that I've been teaching at IU now. I'm about to start year 22. So that's a lot of IU students that are out there doing stuff. But I still feel the same. I still feel like, okay, I'm coming in the morning because I need to practice, and here's what I want to do, and here's how I want to grow. And that's what I'm trying to bring to my students as well. Because you can't be done. You got to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to mention something real quickly about your routine in the mornings, because there are a lot of rumors out there about musicians and trumpet players and how they practice and so on and so forth. And then some of the rumors are really true, and then people are like, "What? There's no way. There's no way." So just for our audience, can you confirm for us how many instruments do you warm up on every morning?
I'm an extreme case. So I will directly answer the question, but please let me provide some context.
Absolutely. And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
We want to provide the context.
I play 10 horns every day. Now, here's how it started for me. When I was a sophomore in college, I'm at the Eastman School of Music, and I was studying with Barbara Butler, who, of course, is amazing. And so we were doing a lot of C trumpet stuff, a lot of excerpts, a lot of solo stuff, a lot of things on C, and everything in orchestra was on C, and everything in band. I was a little surprised. I showed up to band and everybody had their C trumpets on. I'm like, yeah, of course. I knew that. So it was a Saturday afternoon, and I had my B flat trumpet out, and I played one note and thought, well, that feels big. And it's the first time in my life B flat trumpet did not feel like home base. And I thought, that's not okay. This is not good. Now, the good news was C trumpet was really feeling good, but at the expense of B flat trumpet, which led me to think, what do I need to do? Well, I need to make sure I'm playing both every day. So I started getting there when school opened, and at that time I had 3 instruments. I had a B flat, I had a C, and I had a piccolo. So I got there in the morning and thought, what do I need to do? And I kind of sort of stole some things from other people, other teachers, and used some things that I knew I needed to work on, and thought, this is where I'm going to be practicing fundamentals. And for me, there are 4 fundamentals, essentially. I think of, sound. We want a full and clear sound. We want our fingers to work, facility of fingers. We need flexibility, and that doesn't just mean lip slurs, but the ability to move around the horn, and of course, articulation. And all those things over the entire range of the horn. I want to practice those things. So I thought, okay, I got a B flat, I got a C, I got a piccolo, let's do that. Well, then I bought a flugelhorn and thought, well, I should probably throw that in the mix. Then I got an amazing deal on an E-flat trumpet. This is how old I am. Are you prepared for this? One of my friend's older brothers was going to sell his Yamaha E-flat trumpet for $300. And I'm like, I have $300. So even then, that was an amazing deal. So when I graduated college, I had 5 horns. And so I had expanded. So I was doing all 5 of those horns every day. And since then, and I understand this gets a little crazy because it has expanded into cornet came in because, if you want to play cornet well, you should really practice cornet well, and you should sound like a cornet player, not like a trumpet player who just picks it up. That's not really okay. My friend Brian will hunt us all down and beat us over the head with Wick 4s, I think, if we do that wrong. So, but then I ran across, I really had this idea, even before Trumpet Moody started, my trumpet ensemble, the idea of, what about a trumpet ensemble that had a bass voice? And what if this would work? And I originally got myself a 4-valve flugelhorn because then you can play all the way down to the pedal register, but it's still not quite the same. So I bought a used bass trumpet I got out of somebody selling on eBay, and started messing around with it. And thought, yes, this is the answer. And as Trumpet Moody got started, and I brought this to them, and then, you can see that's my primary role now, which is kind of funny if you know what I do professionally, that I make in that ensemble, I play low notes. And then I've also found a couple of interesting instruments, an alto trumpet and an alto flugelhorn, which obviously you need. So I just bought those. You needed them. And then a couple of years ago, I ran across an E-flat cornet, which then seemed really necessary when I was trying it out. So it is a bit extreme, but for me, the idea of that is I want every one of those horns to feel like home base to me. So in doing so, I'm not telling you that I'm spending hours on each horn every day. That's ludicrous. But I do spend a little bit of time every day. Now, one of my friends, Rob Parton, who's now the chair of jazz studies down in North Texas, we were having this discussion several years ago. And he looked at me and said, so you practice flugel every day? Kind of as a joke. And then he would call and say, hey, I don't mean to interrupt your flugel practice, but I have a question for you. And I said, follow me on this. Because most people don't really practice flugelhorn. When they've got some music, they'll pull it out and play on it. It's fine, whatever. And they'll sound fine. And I said, fine, but follow me on this. Let's say I play flugelhorn 10 minutes a day, and I never really practice much else on it. So that's roughly 5 hours a month, because roughly 30 days in a month, and that's roughly 60 hours a year. So you do this over a 10-year period. I've practiced flugelhorn for 600 hours in the past 10 years, and you've practiced 0. Who's more comfortable? And he went, okay, that makes some sense. And that's the way it is with all of these horns. That little bit every day, especially as a teacher and as the kind of performing I do, I get called to do all kinds of different stuff. Sometimes, a lot of the times I get called to play lead trumpet, and that's certainly, I think, what I'm known best for. But there are other times I get called for, hey, I really need you to play this. Hey, Joey, I really need you to play this. And it could be C trumpet or E flat trumpet or bass trumpet, and kind of on short notice. So, or piccolo, especially. Somebody will call. The last time I played Brandenburg was about 8 years ago, I guess. It was on 4 weeks' notice. And it was over Christmas, where I had 3 weeks of Pops concerts during that time. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds good. I play piccolo every day. It should be fine. So the idea of everything feels, and then as a teacher, whatever I'm working with that particular student, I can pick up that horn and I'm ready to go. So it works really well for me. I am not saying everyone needs to be playing 10 horns a day. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is whatever you want to feel like home base, you should be touching every day. That is what I'm saying. Long answer to how many horns you play every day, but it is true. I am at 10, which is maybe a bit extreme because I don't think I'm done. So there's still others out there.
This is so funny.
We need to find a new instrument for you.
Well,
I
think Kayla has ideas.
I just have I've had a million things going through my head, but they just go so quickly. So the first thing, when you said you were at 10, I was thinking of the meme, she's a 10, but she has 10 trumpets, or he's a 10, but he has 10 trumpets. And then
suddenly I'm a 2.
that was the first thing that I saw. And then, Marcus, I texted this to you yesterday or the day before, but I've been spending a lot of time with my grandparents since I've been home. My grandpa just turned 95 on Friday.
Awesome.
And he's still living at home. He's still walking. His brain is all up there, and he's roasting me every day. But he said to me, I always thought there was just one kind of trumpet, and then my granddaughter brings home all of them, because I also have a similar problem. I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 just scattered around me right now.
What problem? I don't have any problems here.
Well, I tell them, I'm like, I could be addicted to drugs, but I'm addicted to trumpets, so I don't see the problem.
That's not a problem. No problem.
It is a lot
It's
better.
not a problem at all.
And in my office, I have hooks on the walls that have a lot of trumpets there. So people walk in and they're like, it's kind of cool. I said, yeah, this job just masks my trumpet problem. That's exactly right. Yes.
It's so great. I think one of the things that's implied by the fact that you even can do this, Joey, that you can practice 10 instruments every morning, is the fact that, there is enough simplicity in trumpet playing that you can extrapolate those 4 fundamentals, which you mentioned, which are incredibly important, right? And I teach the same 4 fundamentals to my students. There's a little bit of what I've been talking about with you, is like some of my pedagogy. It's just taken from what I hear has worked, and I try it, and it works for me, and I adopt it. And this has worked really well with my students. Sound, articulation, flexibility, facility. You hit those things, and it really only takes about 10 minutes on one instrument on a consistent basis, which is the other big thing, is that people like to do 100 days of practice and rest on day 6. And it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work that way. But if you do that, you can actually make 10 instruments feel like home base if you are focusing on the right things, if you're focusing on things that matter, right?
Right.
There's this hierarchy of things that make you, better at a craft. And the reason why a fundamental is called a fundamental is because it has this, there's this element to which when you work on that fundamental, it has a positive effect on every other skill that you work on as a musician. Making a better sound is going to make it easier to play high notes. It's going to make it, easier for you to build your endurance. It's going to make it easier for you to articulate cleanly. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't also work on those skills, but you're going to have a fighting chance of playing in tune with other individuals and so on and so forth. Whereas if you spend, 100 hours a year trying to practice specifically playing your double C, you're probably not going to improve your sound very much.
No.
So you being able to like have that focus of this is what really matters, and I'm going to spend 10 minutes a day, and it becomes 600 hours over 10 years, and everything is home base. I think that's a really special thing that I want to like just make sure that our audience understands. This is the proof that trumpet playing is simple. And
right.
when you focus on what matters, you're able to get pretty far with it, right?
Absolutely. And this sets up, that's just part one, because for me, there's basically two things, right? There's the technique and then there's music. So at the end of that's the beginning of my day, as I'm a morning person, which I know is unusual for musicians, but I usually start at 7 in the morning. So that means when I'm done teaching, then I can practice music. And the great part is if you get your fundamentals in such a good and strong place, you can open up, look at music and think, how do I want this to sound? Instead of, how am I going to get through that? I don't want to have the technical limitations when I'm approaching a piece of music. I want to think, how do I want this to sound? Where am I going to breathe? How's this going to, where's that phrase go? Where's that line go? How do I make this work? Not, oh crap, I can't play that. Now that's technical work. I don't want to have those. I want to eliminate as many technical problems and technical issues as possible so that music is then just music focused. Because then if you can just do that, oh my gosh, then it gets really good.
Yeah. It gets really exciting too. It's not one of those like, well, what can I do? It's like, well, what do I get to do?
Yeah.
This is really cool. What if? Yeah. What do I want to do? Yeah. Ayla, did I ever tell you my story about Joey? The one that I know I haven't told you, Joey, so this is gonna be fun.
Oh no.
The one where I got angry at Joey in the morning because of his warm-ups. I tell you about that one?
I don't think so.
All right, cool. So this is new to both of you guys. I'm a morning person too, and especially when I was in grad school, I know this might be shocking to both of you guys because, shocking that I'm a very shy individual. I keep off to myself a lot. Shocking, I know.
Yeah.
It is actually shocking to some people, like if they see me first, for example, doing a master class at NTC, they're like, oh, there's no way he's an introvert. No, I'm an introvert. I definitely am. But I would get up in the morning because I learned very quickly in undergrad at VCU with Rex that, the hours between 10 and 2 were basically all practice rooms were inaccessible. You can't find any. You will spend your entire 2 hours, if you have 2 hours of free time as a music major, which is a miracle in itself, you'll spend all 2 hours trying to find a practice room. It's like, this is not okay. I can't do this. So that I would get up as early as I possibly could, as soon as the doors of whatever building opened, and I would warm up. I'm like, okay, great. Now I don't have to battle nearly as much to find a room. I can, in most cases, pick the same room every morning. So I can kind of stake out my territory. And then most of my colleagues are asleep, so I don't have to worry about them judging me when I'm playing, which was another problem that I had to work out later in my career. Is like, I shouldn't care about other people judging me playing. But at the time, it was like, yeah, I get to warm up every morning and do this, and it's great. And I had colleagues that were like, I never hear you practicing. How are you able to play like this in masterclass or that? And then it's like, oh yeah, I do that while you're sleeping, because why would I want you to hear me, thrash out all the things I'm terrible at? But I would do this, and there was one Saturday morning. I think it was 6 a.m. I was doing my practice session, and I went through it, and then I went and grabbed breakfast, and then I happened to be walking through the building where Joey teaches, and I'm hearing the Clark third study. But it's like the Clark third study starting on like a C above the staff, right? So I'm walking and I'm just like, that must be Joe. I don't know who else would be in here. This must be my teacher. And I'm hearing what to me sounds like a piccolo trumpet. When I get closer, I realize it sounds a lot more like a B flat trumpet or a C trumpet, just playing remarkably clean, clear. Like, to me, it was like this Baroque sound that you would expect someone to play on a piccolo trumpet, but it was on like a G above the high C. And I remember listening and thinking, what in the world am I listening to? This is bullcrap. Why can this guy who played lead in a jazz band and Maynard Ferguson's band sound like a classical trumpet player on a bighorn, not a piccolo trumpet, but like a B flat or a C or whatever it was, and just sound so effortless and free, and like, I hate this. I quit trumpet. This is enough. It's done. But It was more of proof for me, and this is Joey practices what he preaches. So, and this is another important thing. These are not just theories, right? What you teach, you've tried and tested, and you know that it's true, and that's why you're able to work with it with your students. But it was a moment for me, and a lot of your current and former students have this moment at some point. It's like, right, okay, yeah. So if I do what he says, that result is possible if you follow its natural conclusion, and he's not just saying this because it sounds good and because, he's some random person who figured out his pedagogy years ago and never tested it again, but it actually works, and it works today.
Yeah. This is actually part of a frustration for me. I've had other grad students tell me similar things like, I know you say all those things, but I didn't really believe you were actually in your office at 7, so I came and checked, and you were actually in there. I'm like, yeah, I'm not lying to you. I don't have any secrets. I will tell you everything I know. I have no secrets at all. But this gets to the teaching point that is more difficult and nuanced in having any discussion, that anytime you reach a certain level, and, I've gotten lucky enough to do a lot of really cool things as a professional trumpet player. So once you get to a certain level, people will just say, oh yeah, you're a natural, you don't count. This happens all the time to anybody who's any good at anything. It happens. So the first time somebody said that to me, I started laughing because I thought they must be kidding, because I know how much work I've done. Now, I don't want to show that. I want to show up and play and have it be easy and have people think, yeah, that sounds great. That's the goal. But I thought to myself, natural? No, who's a natural on trumpet? Who has picked up a trumpet the very first time and made a good sound? No one I've ever heard. Everybody who sounds great on the trumpet has worked to get there, and whatever work that means. Now, that being said, there are some people that figure it out quicker than others, and then there are some people that have done really, really well that have absolutely no idea what they're doing. It is amazing, because I've gotten to meet a lot of the best trumpet players in the world over the last, 35 years as a professional, and I always want to, go in, I want to talk trumpet, after Håkon's recital this year. So I got to meet him earlier in the week, and I'd never really met him before. One of the reasons I wanted to go to ITG this year is I need to hear him live, which I'd never had. So we go see the recital, which is spectacular, great trumpet playing, great music all the way through. It was amazing. So I saw him, I guess it was that night, and we'd been chatting a little bit during the week. So he was like, oh, well, I said, hey, listen, I really enjoyed it. I do have a question for you. And my friends are with, a couple of friends with me. That bucket mute you used, what is that? Because I'd never heard a sound quite like that. And my friend's like, what are you doing? And he went right in immediately. He's like, oh, yes. I have it written down because I did. Yeah, I had found this thing, and that is a sound. And he was totally in on that because, he did sound great. I did tell him he sounded great. I did tell him I liked it an awful lot. But now I want to go in and get stuff. And he was right there with me. I have had other experiences where I'm like, so what is your concept, or how have you approached? And they're like, well, see, the thing is, they have no idea. And those people frustrate me to no end, because there is no one-to-one between playing and teaching. There are phenomenal players that are amazing teachers, but there are also phenomenal teachers that don't happen to be phenomenal players. So finding the disconnect there is sometimes really, really, really important. So master classes, I've seen a couple of master classes where I've gone, oh, okay, I'm done here, and other master classes, I need to spend a lot more time with that person. So, and we'll definitely do both of those things. So this is the be discerning part. Check out what's going on there. You should be checking out, going, I know this guy's saying that, but is he really doing it, or is he just saying some stuff? No, he happens to really be doing it, and that's true for lots and lots of really, really good trumpet teachers all over the world.
Marcus and I have talked about almost like fact checking things that you see on the internet. You should always be checking everybody, because if they don't do what they preach, then how do they know that it works? This brings me back to something you said earlier, but about how you want to make things, or you tell students to just do this, which I made a card and I texted it to Marcus already. So we have a just do this card. The students really need that belief from their teachers to be successful. And even if the teacher doesn't tell the student that they don't think the student can do it, the result is the same. So mindset and the openness to everyone being successful is something that I think that a lot of teachers could continue to explore with their students. Because I've had some people be like, oh, this person just can't play trumpet.
Well, that's like the nicest way I think that could have possibly been said. It's so true. I don't know how many times I've had a discussion with students where I'm sitting here saying, here's the problem. There are two people in this room, and there's only one of us that really believes that you can do this, and it's not you. It's so funny, but there are times where teachers are like, well, that kid just doesn't get it. I'm like, wow, that's the first sign of a bad teacher. If you don't think the student... Okay, quick tangent if you don't mind. I'm a math guy, right? And I like math an awful lot. And there's a year, I've had a really interesting career. There was a year where I ended up teaching kindergarten for an entire year, and as part of that job at a little private K through 8, I also taught algebra and pre-algebra. And my job was to get them through those books through that year. And I said, no problem. The woman who was leaving told me, well, those two right there, I don't know what you're going to do. They just don't get it. And all I could think is, what do you mean? It's math. Of course they can get it, because math is quantifiable. 2 + 2 = 4, and I can prove that to you. So I spent that year doing that, and everybody in the class did really, really well. One of those young women the next year, her mother found me in Chicago and said, not algebra to 8th grade. It was the 7th and 8th grade class as well. Thank you very much for that clarification. It was a K through 8. I taught kindergarten, and then there was a pre-algebra and an algebra class in 7th and 8th graders they needed help with, so I took those. So one of those 8th graders was their algebra student of the year next year at high school. Like, her mom found me in Chicago, sent me a nice little note. And I think what happens is this, and this happens in trumpet, but it's easier for me to see in math. There are people who teach math one way. And if you don't understand it that way, you're just bad at math. The number of people I meet that think they're just bad at math, I'm like, what do you mean you're bad at math? Like, I think through high school math, everybody can totally get that. But trumpet has a very similar thing. Well, this is how I teach, and if you're not getting best in the way I teach, then that's on you. No, it's not. It's on the teacher. It's on the teacher to say, how am I going to get this student moving forward? Right. So if you don't understand when I say, there are some people like, this is a true story. It sounds made up. When I was in 2nd grade, Mrs. Turner told us that we had to memorize our multiplication tables. So from 1 times 1 to 12 times 12. So I did that night, because I memorized pretty quickly. So the next day we're going over this again, and I raised my hand and I said, I thought you told us we already had to have these memorized. And Mrs. Turner turned her head a little sideways and said, I'm sorry, what? Well, you told us we had to memorize these. She goes, right. Did you? I said, yes. And so she quizzed me. She says, close your book. And she quizzed me. She's like, okay, that's good work. That is what we're going to be. We didn't have to have them for today. She was very nice about it. But I couldn't figure out why nobody else had already done this. Now, numbers work in my head, and it was easier for me than my friends. Everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses that they bring. But if I basically thought, well, I did it and everybody else is stupid, that's not okay. And there are some trumpet teachers that seem to operate that way. Well, this is how I understand it. If you don't get it that way, that's on you. That's bad pedagogy. Our job as teachers is to reach those students any way we can, any way they can get it, not any way that we give it. And that sometimes gets turned around.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it so much. I teach a lot of my students, a lot of it is just convincing them that they can do what they want to do. Right. And there's a lot of this where, it usually happens within the first 5 lessons or so of bringing on a new student, where they say, well, I wish I could this. I wish I could that. It's like, oh, well, you can. We're like, well, no, I can because of this and because of that and because of that. It's like, oh, well, like, well, I want to sound like I had a student once that was just enthralled by any performance by Mary Bowden, right? It's like, oh, great. Yeah, Mary's awesome. Great trumpet player, great person. Yeah, it's great. It's like, yeah, I wish I could sound like her. It's like, well, someday you can. It's like, no, I never could. No, you really can. Like, yeah, but that's like 1,000 steps away. It's like, okay, cool. All right. No, I'm going to take what you just said, because I'm a math person too. I'm going to take what you just said. All right, 1,000 steps away, right? This was a freshman in high school. How many years are there in high school? For most musicians, like, 4. Yeah, right. Okay, cool. How many days are there in a year? And you can see where this is going easily, right? It's like, all right, cool. All right. So if you practiced every day, and like, don't focus on everything. You don't have to take over the world. Just take one step forward in your playing every day. And you do that for 4 years. How far are you going to go? You said this is 1,000 steps ahead, right? So how far are you going to get? We did the math. It's just like whatever it is, 1,461 because of leap year. And it's like, we go, it's like, all right, cool. You are now past your goal, right? And you haven't even started college. They're like, oh, And I have a whole bunch of students who are like, I can't do this district prepared piece. It's way too hard. All right, how many measures do we have here? 24. All right, how many days do you have before the audition? 60. All right, cool. One measure a day. Right? Can you play this one measure in your entire practice session in one day in this one measure? Well, yeah, but okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. Now tomorrow, can you play all of measure 2? Oh yeah, well, the measure 2 is just a whole note. Right. So yes, on day 3, and we go through that process. And it ends up, much of the conversation I have with students is every staircase. It's a staircase, right? You look at your goal, it's up there. All right. Every staircase is climbed the same way. It could be Rhodes Hall at VCU, which is a freshman dorm that's 21 stories high. Could be 21 stories high, which is pretty far. It could be 2 stories high if you go to a general office building or a house. But regardless, you take it one step at a time. And if you can take one step simultaneously on a consistent basis, you will reach your goal.
Right.
You just have to take the step. Now, Kayla, I also want to mention as well, one of the things that we talked about, and Joey mentioned the having discernment, right? Kayla and I are both content creators. And we have plenty of strangers on the internet who see our stuff, and we are strangers to them as well, at least at first, which is cool. And then sometimes they recognize you from your content when you show up at a national or international event, which is always really cool. But there's a lot of this, right? Like people will say, well, you are wrong because XYZ. And it's like, well, that's funny because this person, if you did even 1 second of research, you would see that this person competed at the National Trumpet Competition, is a professor at this school, has had over 100 students see the successes from this pedagogy, and so on and so forth. And if you just did maybe a little bit of homework, you would have found that out, rather than like, well, it's not what I think, therefore it's wrong. And then from the other side of things, we'll have students who will be like, oh yeah, I really like this, and I know you've experienced this too, Joey. Like, I really like this, this solo, and I want to play this solo. It's like, yeah, cool. Who is your favorite artist? Well, I don't know. I don't know the name of it. I just I saw it. I saw it on Instagram one day, or I saw it on YouTube. It's like, okay, well, who's the name of the musician? And sometimes almost hilariously often you'll see it, and it'll be like, this is you can play better than this. Your interpretation is going to be better than this. So I mean, let's maybe find like a Håkon Hardenberger, a Celine Ott, or a Matilda Lloyd, or there's any number of artists we can see that have been out in the world doing those types of things. If you don't know anything about the person you're listening to, you probably shouldn't listen to them. That includes me, by the way. If you do not know me, go find out about me before you watch my 7C video and I tell you that 7C is trash. It is trash, but you need to be able to trust me before you understand. But that doesn't happen very often online, unfortunately, right, Kayla?
Oh no, we have so many fun little videos of people being like, you're not doing the articulation right, you're not playing the right rhythms, and I'm like, okay.
This is the hardest part of course, being old. I did not grow up with the internet, right? So if I wanted to hear a recording of something, I had to go to a record store, and if it was in a record store, it was probably at least okay. Where now, YouTube is both the greatest thing and sometimes a troubling thing in the universe, because you can find stuff that I never knew existed. One of the first things I saw on YouTube was it was a European broadcast of the Basie Band in 1960, and I could watch Snooky Young play lead, not just hear it, see it in crystal clear black and white TV. I'm like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. And then anybody else, putting up anything that they want. What we need to be teaching more is exactly the word you're talking about, discernment. You need to be discerning. You need to know what you're watching is of quality. And if it's not, let it go. Right? You don't need to bash anybody. You just need to let it go. And then concentrate on the quality, the stuff that is of quality. And there's so much good quality stuff out there. So we should be paying attention to that. But boy, if you're, a young student sitting out in the middle of the country where you may not have access to a lot of professional stuff, you might not know the difference. And that's the hard part. I'm still working on how to do that part better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that describes a lot of what you do as well, Joey, on the space through the Open Bell podcast, through your almost famous blog, as Bill calls it, and so on and so forth. The more resources we have out there like that, the better. And hopefully, as we are giving those things, anyone who runs into us, we can give them that reminder, like, okay, don't take my word for it. Like go out and do that discernment. This has been a really great discussion. We really appreciate having you here, Joey. And it's just what you teach is very clear and easy to follow. And I think that's a really great aspect of teaching pedagogy in general. The moment we complicate things, I'll say it this way. A lot of, a great teacher teaches both so that a student can understand and feel understood. And so, the first part of that is being able to keep things simple and applicable so that someone can take it home. You can listen to this episode and take some of the things we talk about home today, or stay at home if you're already home, pick up your instrument and start, day 1 of your 100 days of practice, hopefully get past day 6. And you can get some really good stuff here. We are running to the end of time. Kayla, is there anything else that you wanted to ask? And then after that, we'll ask where our listeners can find Joey.
Yeah, I think one thing that comes to mind, because I've never worked with you, but I feel like I would have loved to study with you and worked with you when I was in school. But I have some younger students, and I experienced this when I was younger as well, that are really, they work really hard to play trumpet, and they are doing well, and the people around them are pushing them down. So they'll have either friends or classmates that will either start bullying them or, like shutting them out of groups just because they are experiencing success and their classmates are not. So how would you go about, either giving students in that situation some advice or helping teachers to recognize that and get rid of that toxic environment within studios? Sorry, this probably is going to be another hour long. So
that could be another hour. That's so hard. It's so hard. If you're at the middle school and high school level, if you're at that level, I think making sure bringing a band director in, so if that culture is existing within their band, they know and they can help from that perspective. If we're at the college level, it's within your own studio. It's so hard to recognize, because I know students show their teachers what they want, and we don't always see what goes on otherwise. So you really have to listen. You have to be paying attention. But you've really this has got to be taught. It's got to be said out loud. I think when I was growing up, these are the kind of things that was like, well, listen, just keep your head down and go at it, was sort of the prevailing wisdom of the day. And it's not okay. It's not good enough. That's not the way it should go. I think the prevailing wisdom now needs to be, let's shine bright lights on this and show why it's not okay. So if it's happening in your studio, you need to have a studio class where you talk about this. And I know I start my first master class every year here at IU talks about exactly this, and I do it at high school camps as well. The idea that, look around the room, these are the people that are going to either help you get work or keep you getting from work the rest of your life. Now, so you want to be that person that people want to work with. But this sometimes, if the people who are the bullying people will often not listen to this, and it's really, really frustrating. They're the ones that then find out 5 years down the road that person they were bullying is now in the position of keeping them from working, and and that's not great either. We don't want that. But it has to come from the top. The idea that, I can tell you 2 quick stories. You guys know who Craig Morris is, right? Craig is the trumpet teacher down at University of Miami. He's pretty good. So I grew up in Texas, which is a highly, highly, highly competitive atmosphere. So in the fall, you have auditions for, October is region and state jazz band, November is region and state orchestra, and then December is district, region, area, and state band auditions. And you're in a large room with everybody sits in the room together. You walk up to the front, play, and sit down. It's horrifying. So this is how it was. So I really got myself into a good little zone. I keep little comic books with me, and I would just sit there and read. So it's my junior year, and I'm just sitting there reading. You know, and I was fairly competitive, and I did fairly well in these things. So I'm just like getting my head in, and I remember hearing, "Who's that?" And I look up, and I see this kid I don't know sound great. I'm like, wow, that guy can really play. So in the highly competitive Texas atmosphere of which I was grown up in, I went over as soon as we were done. I'm like, hi, I'm Joey. He's like, hi, I'm Craig. Man, you sound really good. Oh, cool. Where do you go to school? I go to church. We have gotten along well ever since. Now, we were in the same school district. So in the highly competitive atmosphere of Texas bands, we should have hated each other. But I listened to him and went, wow, that guy sounds good. I need to go talk to him. And he's like, oh, yeah, I've heard him. You know, he's good. He's old. I should talk to him. So we got along fine. We've got along fine to this day. We see each other. We keep talking about doing stuff, and then neither of us ever follow through. But then after my sophomore year of high school, I went to this 6-week summer jazz camp at the Eastman School of Music. So we did the auditions, and I played lead in the top band, you know, because I'm kind of a big deal. And I also placed into the top combo. And this is the funny part of this, because improvisation was not a strength for me at that time at all. So we're in the first rehearsal with the big band, and the guy sitting next to me, he's playing the second trumpet part. He has a solo in the very first piece. And we improvise solo, and he starts playing, and my first thought was, I'm in the wrong combo. Like, this guy is way better than me at the improvisation stuff. It's not even close. Like, holy crap. That guy's Al Hood. So Al Hood was the trumpet teacher at the University of Denver who suffered a really bad accident a couple years ago. And but Al and I have been friends since then. Now, I could have been like, well, I placed higher than him. I need to hold him down. But even at the time, I'm like, that guy sounds great. I got to talk to him. But I came up through a lot of great teaching. I had supportive parents. I had great band directors and great teachers. If you don't have that, it does come from the teacher. So it has to come shining from the top of the studio, that your job, you don't have to all be best friends, but this job is to be supportive of each other. Everybody is here to raise everyone up, because boy, if you're holding other people down, you're also holding yourself down. Right. So the idea of if you want to get as high and as high as you can go, then being supportive of everyone else doing that as well is your best case, even if it has to be made that clearly that students will say, like, well, I don't want to help him, but I guess that's my only way through. If that'll help, okay, even if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Now, ideally, you should be thinking, wow, if I want trumpet playing to be better, I want everybody to be better. So, and if I want to be great, then I want great people around me. You know, that should be part of it, and we should be colleagues and friendly, you know, and most of the time that is achievable. There are difficulties. I had a student here, and now I know I'm going. I promise I won't make us go 4 hours. But I had a student here who got to his junior year of college, and he was a jazz major at the time. He walked in the middle of the fall semester of his junior year and said, why can't any of these jazz band trumpet sections get along? And I looked him dead in the eye and said, what do all of them have in common? And he got very quiet. Well, I mean, are you saying? I said, I'm saying that if every section you're in can't get along, maybe it's time to look in the mirror a little bit. Like, how are you treating others? And we had a really frank discussion that he did listen to. But to have that kind of frank discussion, even one-on-one, if you know that there's a certain person that is bullying, holding down, trying to pull back, boy, yeah, you shine a light on it in studio class, and then you bring it up in lessons. Absolutely. These are things that need to be taught, and they need to be taught well and clearly, so that it's not brushed under the carpet and then just kind of hope it gets better and get these kids through school and then I don't have to deal with them, which too often is what happens in school. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, very long answer.
Oh, I appreciate that. I think it's what time is it? It's a time to go.
There we go.
Amazing. Hey, we definitely could have another 4 hours on that topic. I'm really glad that that's a great one to close out on. Thank you for that, Kayla.
It's a great question.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for listening to ChatTPT. Joey, where's the best place for us to find you on the wonderful world of the internet?
There is joeytartell.com, which I will be back to updating more regularly. I do have my own podcast, The Open Bell, which you mentioned. Thanks for bringing that up. If you're anywhere near Bloomington, Indiana, in the real world, I am here and often out other places. But yeah, please get in touch. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm easy to find. But thanks for having me in. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for being
much.
in. This has been wonderful.